Thank you for having us. I am Eva Ludwig, President of the Quebec Community Groups Network, an organization that represents Canada's English language minority community, the English-speaking community of Quebec. With me today are QCGN board member, the Honorable Joan Fraser, and our legal counsel, Marion Sandilands. We are back before you today to discuss Bill C-13, an act for the substantive equality of Canada's official languages. The QCGN submitted a brief to this committee during its pre-study of C-13 in June of last year. The brief we provided to you last week builds on that work, with particular attention to the subsequent debates and amendments to the legislation by the House of Commons and the debate at second reading last week in the Senate. The QCGN believes there are positive aspects to the version of C-13 passed at third reading in the House of Commons. The bill goes some way toward improving Part 7 of the Official Languages Act and now makes mention of the Court Challenges Program, a federal program critical to the defense and advancement of the equality and language rights. It also gives additional powers, as you just heard, to the Commissioner of Official Languages. It also seeks to increase the powers, as I said, of the Commissioner. We remain deeply concerned, however, about the effects of Bill C-13 and what it could have on the English-speaking community of Quebec and on the increased asymmetry with respect to Quebec in Canada's federation.
Voilà. Bill C-13 will intensify the impacts of the Charter of French language in our community.
Modified last year by Bill 96. It now preemptively invokes the notwithstanding clauses of both the Constitutional Charter of Rights and Freedoms and Quebec's own Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. This has only been done once before, in Quebec's Bill 21. The inclusion of references to the French language charter in C-13 thus tacitly accepts this preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause, and I submit that that should be of concern to all Canadians. C-13 also gives license to governments and the courts to interpret language rights asymmetrically, that is, more narrowly for the minority language community in Quebec. This is a potentially worrying precedent for other minority language communities. The bill also provides a potential framework to restrict federal support for the English-speaking community of Quebec. We know that arguments have been made that including the Charter of the French language in the Official Languages Act will not diminish the rights of English-speaking Quebecers. I suggest that those arguments were perhaps conceived before C-13 was amended to include a reference to the Quebec law in the purpose clause of the Official Languages Act. Our legal assessment has always been that to mention Quebec's French language charter within the Official Languages Act does pose a danger to our community's rights. This becomes even clearer in the version of the bill that is now before you. You've heard from the dean of one of the world's most respected law schools that this inclusion could have serious and lasting effects on language rights. A former Supreme Court justice has pointed out to this committee that the two language regimes, Canada's and Quebec's, are not compatible. They are fundamentally different. They have different purposes to achieve different aims. Yet they are now being forced together with the help of an undisclosed agreement between Canada and Quebec.
I would like to take a moment to discuss the tone of the debate emanating from some political and media players as C-13 has made its way through Parliament. Members of Parliament, including Anthony Housefather and the Honourable Marc Garneau, were labelled as anti-French for representing the legitimate interests of their constituents. Indeed, MPs from Quebec who spoke out against C-13 were referred to, and I quote, as a group of MPs from the West Island, even though, to our knowledge, no members from this part of Montreal ever spoke in public against the legislation. The bill also provides a potential framework to restrict federal support of the English-speaking community of Quebec. And I'm reading it from the wrong page. Excuse me. When the Action Plan for Official Languages 2023-2028 Protection, Promotion, Collaboration was announced, some members of Parliament and some media outlets questioned why the English-speaking community of Quebec was being financially supported at all in the new strategy. How does allocating funds to the English-speaking community support the protection and promotion of French, they asked. This federal money is being used to anglicize Quebec, they claimed. The very idea that English-speaking Quebecers constitute an official language minority has been openly challenged. This acrimonious atmosphere has been exacerbated by the debate over C-13. How far we have traveled since the spring of 2019, when Canada's English and French linguistic minority communities stood together during the 50th anniversary celebrations for the Official Languages Act.
The Minister of Official Languages was clear to this committee on February the 6th that the benefits of the new action plan are not contingent on the passage of Bill C-13, so there is no immediate urgency to adopt this bill. Our hope is that you will take the time needed for a full analysis of the amended version of the bill, because those amendments are sweeping. It represents a monumental change to the quasi-constitutional Official Languages Act, and it has implications for Canada's unity. We submit that withdrawing the references to the Charter of the French language from C-13 would in no way diminish or abrogate the rights of or support to French-speaking minority communities. There is, however, danger in retaining those references, danger to the English-speaking community of Quebec, and also danger in setting up an official languages regime that creates a precedent for other provinces to impose restrictions on their own linguistic minorities, as Quebec has done. And if the committee wants examples of those restrictions, we can give them to you in the question period.
We appreciate the work that so many Canadians and parliamentarians have put into modernizing the Official Languages Act. English-speaking Quebecers understand the challenge of protecting and promoting French and support efforts that genuinely seek to do so. For more than a half-century, Canada has chosen a path of bilingualism and offered a national vision of linguistic duality, treating its two official languages equally in law. C-13 betrays this tradition and has stirred up tired old narratives that are driving a wedge between English and French-speaking Canadians. Myths about our community, and there are many, which this committee made a historic effort to combat in 2011, are now commonplace in Parliament and the public square. The Official Languages Act is a lifeline for the English-speaking community of Quebec, now more than ever. If C-13 is approved as it stands, that lifeline will be seriously frayed. We look to you, the Senate, to protect our minority rights for the benefit of all Canadians. Thank you.